Okay, we have joining us policy advisor and academic Richard Heydarian, who also happens to have a show with us here in One News. Richard, what's your take with developments of the House of Representatives today, early this afternoon? Yes, Richard.
I think the battle lines were drawn very clearly today. So I think, first of all, we have to give credit to Sara Duterte. I think she did what many people were, well, at least on her side, were hoping her to do, which is to take a strident stance, not only present herself as a victim of a supposed political witch hunt, but also present herself as someone who's professional, someone who's patriotic, someone who cares about the true problems of the country, and someone who does not hold back from calling out what she believes is a kind of a demolition job, right? So we can have a debate about the substance of her argument, but I think the construction of the argument, obviously binabasa lang niya sa cellphone, but I think whatever was constructed there and the way she delivered it was very strident and strong, and it was something na bagay sa kanyang personality, because you cannot rebrand or show a different side of you na malayo dun sa initial perception ng tao sa'yo. Of course, ang perception sa kanya is matapang, palaban side. We saw that matapang and palaban side. So I think from a public relations, communication standpoint, that was one of the finer, if one of the finest performances or posturing by her in recent months. And I think that already sets the battle lines for the coming weeks and months, especially as we head into elections, where she's saying, ako, ang pake ko, yung bansa, yung mga problema ng bansa, kayo, purong politika lang gusto niyo at gusto niyo i-sabotage yung aking potential future hopes. Or you're all doing this just because you don't want me to be the next president and you have your own ambitions. From that standpoint, I think she did very well.
Okay, I'm excited to hear Ronald's take on that. Richard says he appreciates the messaging that was delivered by the Vice President. Do you think it will go down well with the public?
Depende sa pinanggagalingan. Halimbawa, compared dun sa kanyang previous na pagharap sa Kongreso nung unang budget hearing niya, better na ito.
Oh, improvement.
No? Oo. Pero, halimbawa, yung mga sinabi niya, yung substance na ayaw niya ng special treatment. By not taking the oath, you are asking for special treatment. Mm-hmm. So, yun yung ibig sabihin nun. No? Dahil lahat naman ng resource person nagte-take ng oath eh. So, bakit siya hindi? No? So, kung yan ay babanata ng mga kongresista, ay may puntos yung Congress laban sa kanya. Lalo na, inuulit ko, yung legislative inquiry powers ng Congress ay very comprehensive at very broad, at Supreme Court lang yung pwedeng mag-dictate kung ano yung limits nun. Not even the Vice President can do that.
Okay, I mean, how about you? Do you think this will play out well or not too well out in the public? The Vice President,
babalikan ko lang yung tanong mo kanina, Patrick, yung may pag-asa ba to sa Senate?
Right.
You know, the senators will also think about the issues involved there. Kasi medyo na-dik-dik na rin dyan kung bakit tinanggal ng House yung ganung kalaking pondo. Di ba? Medyo matagal-tagal, this has been a drawn-out inquiry at yung mga issues naglabasan na eh. Ano yung ginawa na dito sa pondon to? Saan napunta to? Bakit tinanggal yung mga secret funds? Nag-umpisa yan sa secret funds eh. Siyempre, isipin din yun ng mga senador. Although, of course, meron siya mga kakampi doon, bilang natin, yung dalawa in addition to the three na pro-Duterte. Pero titignan natin yung kung ano mangyayari sa Senate and then finally sa bicameral. Dahil nga sabi mo, syempre, well, as Richard also said, battle lines have been drawn. Syempre, iniisip din na medyo malakas pa rin itong presidente to at this point.
Okay.
The administration is very strong and you know kung saan sila nakapwesto when it comes to the Vice President and the Dutertes.
Okay.
In relation to sa Senate, ay baka mahirapan yung ibang senador na i-carry yung cudgel for the Vice President, especially in relation dun sa notice for disallowance ng COA. Siguro dapat madagdagan yung dalawang pro-Duterte, si Bongo at saka si Bato at saka si Jinggoy, dahil parang hindi magandang spokesperson yung tatlo about tungkol sa usapin ng ganyang klaseng issues of corruption. Lalo na si Senator Jinggoy ay meron pang conviction for graft and corruption, no? Okay. So dapat makahanap sila ng ibang kakampi. Oo, na magdadala ng issue dito sa usapin ng 73 million na notice of disallowance.
Okay, Richard, you said battle lines have been drawn. So my question to you is, where do you think the Senate will go? The senators.
Well, I mean,
will do
first
this.
of all, I mean, Patrick, great questions. First of all, opening salvo lang ito. So don't expect this to be this kind of a one-act thing. So essentially, Sara is saying this will be our line for the next weeks, months, if not all the way to 2028. So imagine all of their proxies, all of their supporters, propagandists, allies are going to build on, essentially on that argument. And I think that will be her personality and positioning. Now, speaking of the Senate, the thing is, one side of the argument is that kung may opportunity to impeach her or push for that is now kasi may leverage ka over a lot of senators who are who want to get re-elected. And obviously, if you're in the administration slate or you have the support of administration, your chances are way higher, let's say 5 to 10% bump in the numbers. But I think, first of all, there's an element of time. It's already mid-September, malapit na mag-break. I think the momentum was there perhaps 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So I think perhaps even some people in the Congress are getting cold feet. I mean, no less than Sonny Trillanes, someone who was very optimistic about impeachment and ICC coming this month, are wondering what the heck is going to happen, whether he has to take things into his own hands. The other thing is that there are a lot of senators there who are not necessarily, have not chosen between any of these two sides and want to run at least for VP, if not president. Some of them may even want to be the running mate of Sara Duterte, or at least they don't want to be at the cross heirs of the Duterte side. So they may think jumping on this, what seems to be a kind of a hodgepodge approach, will not help them down the road. I mean, you can imagine there are people like Senator Grace Poe, who's now leading the vice presidential race for in Pulse Asian survey, way ahead of everyone, but she'll be out of position and she's not running for election. Why should she be part of something that will come back to haunt her later on? If she can play just this safe all the way to 2028 and have a good relationship with outside and easily become the next vice president. I'm just giving you one example here. So it's not very clear to me the leverage of the administration and some of the senators is as strong, and the element of time I think is very important. In 2 weeks, we will be talking about who's running for Senate, who's running for the midterm elections. So I think Sara was not doing a genius job of killing the momentum against her, but I think she did a good job of kind of holding the fort and giving chance for others to think twice if they wanted to join this bandwagon of impeaching her or striking down the Dutertes all the way.
Okay, before we proceed, let's hear again another soundbite from the Vice President from earlier today in the House hearing.
Kasi nagsabi na siya kanina, 'di ba? Determination of malfeasance, nonfeasance, misfeasance. So ibig sabihin, merong ginawang mali. Nagpa-practice sila kung ano yung kakagat sa impeachment. Kahit anong gawin nila, wala talaga kaming ginawang mali sa Office of the Vice President.
Ronald, is it good strategy? Of course, the answer might be obvious, but then again, maybe it's not that obvious. Is it good strategy for the administration, or at least for the ruling coalition, the House of Representatives, to impeach her?
Well, tama yung sabi ni Richard. Kung merong planong impeachment, ang kalaban ngayon ay panahon. No? Dahil recess na sa katapusan. Tapos filing of candidacy na starting October 1. At almost kampanya na after nung filing. No? At kaya yun yung pinaka-problema kung merong nagpaplano ng impeachment. No? Ikalawa, yung nabanggit ni Richard na pwedeng may mga ilang senador na open na mag-vice presidential candidate kay Sara. Totoo yun, pero hindi ganun karami. Halimbawa, ang pumuposisyon yan, probably si Robin Padilla.
Right.
Si Grace po kasi naghahabol ng posisyon sa cabinet within the next 3 years, pagkatapos ng term niya next year. Kaya mas malaki ang probability na sumama si Grace po sa administration rather than sa mga Duterte. No, yun yung
Hindi yan nilinya kay Sara over the OVP
within
budget.
the next 3 years. Within the next 3 years, no? Tapos tingin ko ikatlo yung mas problema ng mga nagbalak ng impeachment ay baka wala pang go signal yung presidente na conflict adverse at passive aggressive. Tingin ko yun yung hinihintay ng mga leaders ng House. Ano ba yung blessing, ano ba yung gusto ng presidente? Na tingin ko hanggang ngayon ay wala pa. No? Kaya yun yung main hindrance kung meron mang nagpaplano ng impeachment.
Okay, Ami, I'd like to hear your views on this matter. Ami has been covering Malacanang and has been EIC of the Philippines for some time. So alam mo na, you're quite familiar with mga galawang ganito, Ami. So what do you think? How is this going to play out?
I think yung impeachment trial, balloon pa lang yan eh. Kasi remember, if you're going to impeach someone and kung sakasakali mang matuloy, ang iisipin ng mga tao, sino ba ipapalit? At kung sino yung ipapalit doon, it will affect the administration. So yan ngayon, tingin ko trial balloon lang. Ang more doable at this point, yung sinabi na rin ni Sara Duterte sa previous statements niya, they want to defang her, which they can do. Yun, pwede nilang gawin yon. They are doing it already through the budget. Ngayon, yung pagdi-defang sa kanya na yon, meron ding basis yun eh. Merong COA yan eh. That's not a political agency. So yun, pag yun ang sinasabi ko na iisipin din yan ng mga senador, that's a Commission on Audit report on how she used her budget since 2022 when she took over. So yan ngayon. Kami, matagal na namin naririnig yung impeachment na yan, dal. Pero hindi nga nagkakaroon. It's not just gaining traction, ha? And yun na nga, sinabi ko, sinong ipapalit? Iisa lang pangalan na lumalabas dyan kung sakasakali na ipapalit. Kasi ang pipili dyan kung sakasakali is the President. Kung matatanggal ang Vice President mo, you will pick the new Vice President. Sinong pipiliin ni President Marcos? Iisa lang yung lumalabas na pangalan. And I think you know kung sino yon. And I'm not sure kung maganda for the administration yon. Kung mangyayari yon, baka maging martir pa yung mga Duterte, palakasin pa nila yan.
Okay.
Going into 2028.
Panghuling point lang.
Dali lang. Bago Ronald, si Richard is with us on limited time. Richard, I want to ask you, impeachment is a political process like they say. No, it doesn't matter what evidence you have. Do you think it's good politics to impeach the Vice President? Good or bad politics?
Kailangan ko lang kasi umabol for West Philippines yung article. But on this point, I think very quickly, no? Sa isang banda, the strength of Sara's attack a while ago, and I think this will be their strength in the coming weeks and months, is there's a credibility gap with this Congress. This is the same Congress that the other year was defending some of the questionable or supposedly questionable practices of the office of the Vice President. The person who was in charge, si Stella Kimbo, was the very person who was defending her confidential fund the other year. So, yun yung wina-weaponize ng mga Sara Duterte side. Like, you guys have no credibility. When we were doing fine as a unit team, you were all on my side and passing my budget very fast. And now that suddenly unit team is not there, suddenly you have issues with my practice. So that credibility gap is something that is biting back the Philippine House of Representatives. And I think many in the Senate don't want to be part of that and want to project this image of being above the fray. And I think the Senate, obviously, the quality of some of their hearings were obviously inferior to what we would expect. And Congress has been doing some very solid hearings. But the problem is, again, the credibility gap and institutional reputation. I think the Congress has that problem. But more importantly, Amy was right. You see, Ralph Waldo Emerson said something, if you strike at the king, you must make sure, you finish the job. Otherwise, he will come back with vengeance. And I think the problem here is that kung dodgy, shady, hodgepodge, yung itong attack nila kay Sara, or what Sara sees as a demolition job, if they don't see this through, because as Ronald correctly pointed out, you have a risk-averse president who doesn't seem to be able to be in a position to put everyone in line to get some difficult job across the line. Baka gusto niya magduran-duran or mag-concert. My point is that could come to bite them later on. Because if the plan B is dudurugin mo yung mga Duterte sa midterm elections dahil mas marami kang pera and resources, and then you have another 2 years na dudurugin mo sila para hindi na sila tumakbo sa 2028, you never know that could work. If anything, if Duterte's just survive in midterm elections and get 1 or 2 senators in, Bongo is almost sure, that's victory alone. They could play guerrilla warfare, just survive, then come back with a vengeance, and as Ami said, even come back as martyr, but tough and fighting martyrs. And this is also something we didn't see with Lenny before. I think Lenny did not show that toughness that Sara is showing. And given our electorate and the predisposition of people, I think this kind of palaban martyr style may actually work. So I'll never underestimate the Dutertes. I think they have a good chance of coming back. So if some people think the plan B is the way forward, be careful for what you wish for. The Dutertes can come back with a vengeance later on.
Okay, I know you have limited time with us and you have to go. Thank you, Richard Heydarian, political and geopolitical analyst.